So here it is, the Pimax Super, a headset that promises incredible visuals, an ultra-wide field of view, and a truly premium VR experience. But does it live up to the hype? The iRacing team commented on X, one monitor, 3 monitors, VR, how do you play? Is the Pimax Super finally good enough to ditch those multi-monitor setups and make the move to VR in this iconic racing simulator? Well, it's time to find out right after this. So thank you to the fantastic team at Pimax for providing me with this, the Pimax Super, so I can put it through its paces and share these videos with you. But you can get yourself an amazing discount from a Pimax Super by using the link in the video description and using the code NLSimgaming. Again, thank you Pimax for this incredible offer. So first of all, we're going to be taking a look at the Pimax Play setup on the Crystal Super. Everything from this cool light up visor to the render resolution and the brand new Pimax Play update and what's changed. How easy is it to set up? We're then going to be diving into iRacing, where I'll be looking at the settings used and how the headset performs in the game. So a number of people have asked me what my settings are in iRacing, and I like to play the game at a level of visual quality. So even on the RTX 4090 and using the Pimax Crystal Light, I actually use the same settings as what I'm showing you here now. Now on the Pimax Super, with a render resolution of set at 0.9, on the Pimax Play, which I'll show you in a moment, these settings produce a consistent 90 frames per second, which is at 90Hz mode in the actual VR headset, and the experience is absolutely fantastic. So just to run through, the resolution is set at 2560 by 1440 and I use it on a bordered mode, and I find that works best not only for the overall in visual quality on the actual headset, but also more for screen capture purposes. In terms of the UI zoom, so that in the actual headset, the actual UI, if you need to actually go into this menu, comes up in a large scale just like this. I normally set it at that level there. One other option that is certainly worth mentioning as well is to use the high contrast mouse cursor, which is the mouse cursor as you see here, and that just makes it also easier to actually see within the actual settings itself when you bring the HUD up in the game. Onto the graphical settings again, so as you can see, everything is set to high detail with the exception of the crowds, which isn't really important, so I leave that set at low detail. The MSAA is the anti-aliasing method. I'm using OpenXR, which is the Pimax native OpenXR in the game itself. MSAA have the sample level set to 4 times, and then as you can see, all the other settings are set at the highest level of detail generally. The only exception to this is that what I don't really bother with is you can actually, in the game itself, set the mirrors to produce an image. I just prefer just to have the top mirror enabled, which is just the default one. The screen sampling ambient occlusion I leave off. It is quite demanding, and you do see obviously a little bit of a dissipation in video quality if that's the case. Things like distortion and heat, haze and sharpening I leave off, and the other settings as you can see here, so the limit that was set here actually related to the Pimax Crystal Light, so it would produce a FPS limit of 120. Pre-rendered frames are leaving at 1, and I tend to find this produces a far smoother in-game experience. And that is the in-game graphical settings that I have. The only other one to mention as well is in controls. A lot of people actually ask how you reset the in-car view, which is called recenter head-mounted display. So simply by pressing the relevant button you want to choose on your steering wheel, you can easily recenter the VR view. So in the event of losing any tracking in the game, you can simply press that button, it will recenter the view, or you can obviously then adjust yourself in your driving sim seat, and you can then press the button to center the head-mounted display as you wish. So next up is the Pimax Player settings. Now we're on the latest version of Pimax Player here, which is the 1.39.4 as of the time of making this video. Within this actual update there's been a number of improvements. I will link the link below to the actual Pimax official video relating to the updates that have been made. However, you'll see the Pimax Super pop up in all its glory. You'll see here that it's indicating that the headset is not tracked. The headset is currently sat docked and is not in use. So the not tracked message simply indicates that we are not wearing the headset, and basically it's not presently tracking. It's sat currently pulsing away on the base station image just here, and is essentially in a ready state to go. So in the Pimax Player device settings next, on the device information page, I've scrolled down because it does contain serial number information and relevant information about the device just above. However, scrolling down further, one thing that many people mention is that they have issues with tracking. Now, for me personally, I found that this is normally on an automatic setting. So in the UK, I tend to find that the 50 Hz mode works fine, and if we were to set it to auto, it would actually default at 50 Hz anyway. So to save it hunting between both settings in an automatic mode, I've actually manually set it to 50 Hz, and I haven't had any problems with tracking in the Pimax Super. It's been absolutely tremendous. In terms of refresh rate, we have two different variations. We have 90 Hz and 72 Hz on the Pimax Super. And then in terms of the other settings, screen timer I would normally leave at 5 minutes. As mentioned, as you'll see in a moment, the screen brightness when you first go into the Pimax Super is incredibly bright, and I actually find that it works perfectly if you set it actually at 99, which is just one slightly below. Now, one of the things I got very excited about, perhaps too excited about, was the actual light bar on front of the actual headset. And this can actually be changed, so we can actually first of all change it between two colours here, the blue and then the traditional Pimax green. If we go on to customize, however, we can actually change the colour to make it bespoke as to how we actually want it. So we can actually vary it by just mixing these colours as you would with a general colour palette. And as you can see here, the little indicator in the box changes accordingly. Now this is absolutely superb, and I spent far too long playing around with this initially when I received a headset. But once again, it's just a really nice feature, and it just makes the headset look absolutely amazing, especially to any friends or external bypasses that you may have whilst you're playing the game. Eye tracking has been supplied in this headset by Tobii. Now Tobii are a leading industry supplier of eye tracking equipment. I have a Tobii Eye Tracker 5 and I found it works absolutely fantastically, and you can tell in the headset that the level of quality of the eye tracking is absolutely superb. We have an automatic IPD adjustment. I've actually disabled this because once it's set, you can actually disable this and it then won't do that initial setup each time you put the headset on. So I find that by disabling this feature, it just works tremendously well once you've actually got in there and you've actually set it within the exact range first time round. And then we actually have the ability to actually set the target IPD manually just there. We have the handset vibration adjustment in this section here, and as you can see, everything else is pretty much the same. Now into the important section now, so the actual customized setting for the games section. So within here we have the same settings of low, medium, high. If we set it at high and then we go on to customize, you'll see that high is actually 1. So what I've done in, for example, iRacing, I found high, it looked tremendous, but it was really unnecessary. By setting it back down to 0.90, it works absolutely fantastically and it looks amazing in iRacing. Now once again, I have in this particular instance on this game foveated rendering disabled, but we do have native OpenXR quad views or quad views coming into iRacing in the forthcoming updates, and there is a link to the article on that in the video description as well, so you can see a bit more information relating to that. If we do select the OpenXR quad views or the central priority rendering, you'll see in a moment that it will change down here in the settings, or it will at least if I click apply just here. But it then gives us the ability to actually then change the presets on there, or a preference, so we can change it between performance, balance and quality. You can see here that that's now changed to on. In this instance I'm just going to disable that because in this video, as mentioned, I'm using it with no foveated rendering on. Hidden area mask. Now hidden area mask is an interesting one. So basically in unrendered areas of the outside peripheral view, it was essentially not necessary for the GPU to render that information because you couldn't really see that anyway because the field of view was very limited in, for example, the Pimax Crystal Light. However, I won't spoil it for you, but I've disabled it for the purposes of this particular video because you can really see it. It's absolutely amazing. So I've actually disabled the hidden area mask for the purpose of this video. Smart smoothing is something that I found works really well. I haven't experimented too much with it, but in the recent updates, smart smoothing has actually become a really fantastic tool and it looks absolutely amazing. Now in American Truck Simulator and Euro Truck Simulator 2, as you may have seen from a previous video I did with the guides for those, smart smoothing is something that I have used and it works tremendously well, and many users are reporting it is now an actually fantastic feature to use. And in the device settings page in general, we have the OpenXR runtime. Now if we hover over this, you'll see that the OpenXR runtime is actually presently set for the Pimax OpenXR. If you were to go into the Steam VR settings, you can actually make Steam the native OpenXR runtime, and you will see in here that it will then change to an option to enable it back within here. I've actually got it set as headset as default for audio output device, however I'm just going to actually untick that because I actually do use some Soundcore P10 VR headphones which are low latency, and I tend to find for the purposes at least of content creation, so I'm not picking up any noise coming from the actual speakers of the headset, that works tremendously well. And then onto the actual device settings again, so this is now in the advanced section. We actually have the ability to slightly offset our IPD, and we can offset that using the left, right and vertical, horizontal and vertical offset just here. Pass through, I haven't tried the pass-through on the actual headset yet, but pass-through is not something I normally do use. Activate chaperone. Well, if you're playing a seated game, for example, or a standing game where you obviously require an area around you to essentially have a level of protection against objects outside of an area that you will preset, the chaperone is obviously an essential tool. However, when you are seated in a racing game, I actually do deactivate that actual function because it's not necessary. Okay, so I'm going to try and summarize this as briefly as possible. iRacing and the Pimax Super are a match made in heaven, but not for the reasons you would actually initially think. So my experience of iRacing in VR, I don't generally play it in VR. When I played iRacing, I would normally play it on a ultra wide monitor, and the reason for this is because VR has never really given me the confidence to play iRacing competitively, because in iRacing this is not Automobilista 2 or a standard game like that. This is a paid subscription game where you have iRating at stake and you are playing normally online against a number of people, and it's very easy to make a mistake that could essentially not only cost you that reputation in terms of iRacing, but could get you kicked from a game entirely. So in VR, it only takes a slight hiccup of technicality, be it losing tracking for a brief moment, or even just not being able to see because you don't have that field of view to be able to see that incident occurring or about to occur. Now, when I first came into this game, I was in awe. It's visually stunning, and I can see right down to the granular level of detail in the asphalt on the road. I can see the fine detail on the pace car in front of me, actually probably like I've never been able to see before. It looks absolutely amazing. So I'm going to summarize it into a nutshell of the things I think are really important. Now, talking about
visuals. Of course you would expect it to be visually stunning. It's a Pimax Super, it is the king of VR headsets. But obviously, of course, I've got to take into account comments that people had in terms of concerns in Discord and in terms of Reddit, etc. And I've tried to accumulate those in my mind before coming in and experiencing it for myself. So first of all, lots of people commented about Mura in the headset, other reviews, etc. Now I've got to say that Mura is something that occurs in every VR headset. I've had a Pico 4, a Quest 3, Pimax Crystal Light, Quest Pro, to name but a few, and there's been Mura in every single one of them. I'm looking up at the sky now and I can barely see it. It's barely noticeable. If you look hard enough for it, you can see it. But to be honest with you, is it an immersion breaker? Is it a deal breaker? No, you can barely notice it. That's how good it is in terms of visual clarity. But the main thing that gets you in this game, just like then, out of the corner of my eye I saw that car coming. Now when I first sat in the pits in this game, the peripheral vision, I could actually see that net to my left hand side, like the car just coming into view. And then I've never seen that before in VR on iRacing, and it's absolutely amazing. It really is. It gives you that opportunity to avoid those instants, and therefore, as mentioned, gives you the confidence to be able to now play competitively online against other people. The third thing I've got to mention is, as well, I mentioned about confidence in the actual headset itself. So the tracking in this headset is absolutely incredible. I don't know what Pimax have done to it or with it, but it's absolutely unbelievable. And in 4 hours of gameplay, with studio lighting all around me, with every distraction you could possibly wish for, it's been absolutely rock solid. It really is amazing. Like just then, I just saw that just out of the corner of my eye just then, and I still can't get used to how amazing that is. The field of view, both horizontally and vertically in this headset, is absolutely amazing.
So we'll be looking at more titles on the incredible Pimax Super in the next videos, but let me know your thoughts or ask any questions in the comments, or join the Next Level Sim Gaming Discord, where I'll be happy to help. Here are some links to some other videos that you may find of help or interest. Until next time, take care and I'll see you again soon.